Okay, picking up in chapter 11 of Judges, we pick up here with Jephthah. And Jephthah is, when we left off in chapter 10 last time, the question was asked in verse 18 of chapter 10, who is the man who will begin the fight against the people of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. And so, chapter 11, now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty man of valor, but he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead begot Jephthah. Gilead's wife bore sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, you shall have no inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. So it appears that Jephthah's father, Gilead, had him through a harlot, and so then once his wife started having sons, then Jephthah was ostracized and sent away. And it says in verse 3 that Jephthah fled from his brothers and dwelt in the land of Tob. And worthless men banded together with Jephthah and went out raiding with him. It came to pass after a time that the people of Ammon made war against Israel. And so it was when the people of Ammon made war against Israel that the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. And they said to him, come and be our commander that we may fight against the people of Ammon. And Jephthah in verse 7 is asking the question, did you not hate me and expel me from my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, that is why we have turned again to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the people of Ammon, and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. So Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, if you take me back home to fight against the people of Ammon, and the Lord delivers them to me, shall I be your head? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, the Lord will be a witness between us, if we do not do according to your words. Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord in Mizpah. And then going forward, so now with Jephthah in this command position, he's sending messengers to the king of the people of Ammon in verse 12, saying, hey, what do you have against me that you have come to fight against me in my land? And so from the Ammon's perspective, the people of Ammon, they're saying, because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt, from the Arnon as far as the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore these lands peaceably. And then in verse 14 on, Jephthah really gives a history of what's going on here. And remember when the children of Israel were passing through in the wilderness, and they were passing through these different lands, they really had respect for the Amorites, the Moabites, and the Edomites, because these were distant relatives of the Jews. Again, Lot's daughters, respectively, Lot had sexual relations with two of his daughters, and that begot the Ammonites and the Moabites, and then through Esau the Edomites. So Ammonites and Moabites through Lot, and then through Esau the Edomites. So when they came upon these areas of land, they were really sending out a message of, hey, we want to pass through. And so from the perspective of Jephthah, and really how it happened, he's saying, hey, we didn't take away the land of Moab, nor the land of the people of Ammon, verse 15. For when Israel came up from Egypt, they walked through the wilderness as far as the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, please, let me pass through your land. But the king of Edom would not heed, and in like manner they sent to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained in Kadesh. So they were sending out these messages of, hey, let us come through. They were saying no, and so they would remain in their location. And then, but then going on, what Jephthah points out here is that when they did finally come into this area where the Ammonites are now, the land at the time was not in the hand of the Ammonites. It was in the hand of the Amorites. So with it being in the hand of the Amorites, the king of Sihon, you'll remember that the king of Sihon was utterly destroyed, he and his people, and that's how Israel had gotten this land. Verse 21, thus Israel, verse 21, and the Lord God of Israel delivered Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. Thus Israel gained possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. So they had taken this possession. And then in verse 23, this is a really interesting verse here. He says, "And now the Lord God of Israel has dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel. Should you then possess it?" So he's asking this question to Ammon. "Will you not possess whatever Chemosh your God gives you to possess? So whatever the Lord our God takes possession of before us, we will possess." And then he goes on to talk about as well, just that, now the Ammonites are concerned about this land, but the 300 years that the Israelites had kind of spent, in this area kind of south of there and around there, they didn't even bother with it. But now all of a sudden they're wanting the land. And he says, "May the Lord the judge render judgment this day between the children of Israel and the people of Ammon." However, the king of the people of Ammon did not heed the words which Jephthah sent him. What's interesting here too is this, the just the willingness of Jephthah to, put it out there in terms of, this comparison of gods. And we see this all throughout the Old Testament. And just even in terms here of going into battle, and, in a sense, may the best God win, right? May the real God win. And also, even with prophecies, we see the testing of okay, if your God is God, who is the one true God? Well, the one true God, anything that's spoken of by God, then as a prophecy, then that'll come true. And so that's one of the cool things about what we see in the Bible is these prophecies come true, right? God always showing himself. And then in verses 29 through 33, we see Jephthah basically make a rash vow here. He's going in to fight against the people of Ammon. And as he's going in, he says in verse 30, "If you will indeed deliver the people of Ammon into my hands, and it will be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the people of Ammon shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering." And kind of a rash vow, and I imagine we do the same. I mean, God, if you will, just get me out of this mess just for this moment. I'll do, I'll do whatever. I'll go to church every Sunday, or I'll pray more, or making these deals with God. And so Jephthah makes this vow that hey, if these people are delivered into my hand, the people of Ammon, then whatever comes in my house, I'm going to give to you, and even offer it up as a burnt sacrifice. And in verse 34, when he comes, who's coming out of the house? His daughter. She's his only child, his only daughter, and she comes out with timbrels and dancing to celebrate his arrival. And there's this interaction that they have, and he's letting her know this, and he's troubled, and he's just saying, he's got to fulfill in this vow. And she says to him, do to me according to whatever has gone out of your mouth. Verse 36. Because the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the people of Ammon. Then she said to her father, "Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone for 2 months, that I may go and wander on the mountain and bewail my virginity, my friends and I." And then it goes on to say, "And it was so at the end of 2 months that she returned to her father, and he carried out his vow with her, which he had vowed. She knew no man." Now, what's interesting here is we really don't know exactly what took place. And, because the vow takes on 2 parts. He says that whoever, whatever comes out of his house shall surely be the Lord's, and he will also offer it up in a burnt offering. Well, we know that the Lord doesn't require human sacrifice, does not want human sacrifice, is not in favor of it one iota. And then there's this idea of her being a virgin, and it says at the end of verse 39, she knew no man. So I'm just, it's curious what exactly happened. Did she spend out the rest of her days as a virgin? It doesn't say, but it's interesting to think about. And it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went 4 days each year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. And then getting into chapter 12, the Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, comes out again, and they gather to Jephthah, and they're saying to him, "Why did you cross over to fight against the people of Ammon and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house down on you with fire." You know, if you guys remember back, it was the Ephraimites that had come and accosted Gideon. You know, when Gideon was taking on, I believe it was the Ammonites that he was pursuing at that time. I believe so. Let's see here. Gideon. That was the Midianites. That's right. So it was the Midianites that Gideon was in pursuit of, and so Ephraim was bothered with them. But in Gideon's case, we saw that we saw Gideon really in this really beautiful act of diplomacy, calm everything down. But we don't see that here. Actually, Jephthah, says to Ephraim, "Hey." Verse 2, "My people and I were in a great struggle with the people of Ammon, and when I called you," so he called on the Ephraim, "when I called you, you did not deliver me out of their hands. So when I saw that you would not deliver me, guess what? I took my life in my own hands and crossed over against the people of Ammon." So they were crossing over from the west side of the Jordan into the east to have these battles. "And the Lord delivered them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" And there's a war. This really stinks because there's really a war between two tribes of Israel, between Jephthah the Gilead, against Ephraim. And it says, "You Gileadites are fugitives of Ephraim among." This was Ephraim talking. "You Gileadites are fugitives of Ephraim among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites." And so the Gileadites seized the fords of the Jordan before the Ephraimites arrived. And there was this, they to test who, if they were Ephraimites or not, they would have them say Shibboleth, which means a flowing stream, and he would say Sibboleth. So they couldn't pronounce the H-I. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but they couldn't pronounce it right. And those that couldn't pronounce it right, it would prove that they were an Ephraimite, and then they were killed. And it says there fell at that time 42,000 Ephraimites. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried among the cities of Gilead. And something to point out here, I'd read this in a commentary, which was interesting. And it says, in reference to this civil war between the two tribes, it says, "Is it not a fact that those who have met and overthrown heresy are those who have then crossed swords with their brethren," which is exactly what we see here, right? These crossing swords of brethren, "and fought over things that were not a vital question of truth." Just really makes me think of church today, right? It makes me think of denominations. Makes me think of disagreements, and to reflect and realize that it's all the Church of Christ. It's the church is God's. It's Jesus's church, and to not squabble, as he says here, to not squabble over things that are not a vital question of truth. And then to finish chapter 12, after Jephthah, there was Ibzan, who judged 7 years and died in Bethlehem. Then there was Elan, the Zebulunite. He judged 10 years. And after him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Pirathonite, judged Israel. And he judged Israel for 8 years. And then next we're going to get into the birth of Samson. And a lot of rich stuff here as we get into Samson. So he's going to be the next judge. He's a Nazarite, and we'll look at that together and talk about the Nazarites next time. So God bless you, and till then.